And we're live. So, folks, I'm a little nervous about this week's show. Last week, YouTube totally borked the podcast. I wasn't even able to share it on any other platforms or podcasting services. So, I'm just sort of redundantly recording this in backup. But hopefully, we can make it through an entire broadcast without YouTube shutting us all down. Hey, everybody, welcome to another SGGQA podcast, the podcast where I, SGG, some gadget guy, talk about your questions and answer them. That's where the QA comes from, the questions and answers from all of the amazing comments and discussion that get generated on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Juan Bagnell, JuanBagnell. Or if you just search for some gadget guy on the YouTubes, you'll find me lickety split. I don't know why I just said lickety split, but we've got some cool stuff to talk about today, folks. Of course, I am coming down from another just jerky comment on my YouTube channel. So one came courtesy of Lisa, who just felt it necessary. She just absolutely had to share with me how effing ugly my thumbs were because I apparently chew on my nails, and it's really upsetting because I've talked about this in previous podcasts. I wish there were some way I could like maybe do floating disclaimers, like pop-up video style, every time I have to show my hands or my face on camera, because I suffer from psoriasis and it just gets really old. Like, oh man, if you just stop chewing on your nails, they wouldn't be so effing disgusting. And you're like, well, it's not that simple, because psoriasis seems to jack up everything with your skin and your nails. And if I could afford to hire a hand model, I would probably still not do that, because I would use all that money to spend on more fancy tech gadgets. But I would at least be able to sort of broach the subject with a little bit more reasonable discussion than just, oh, just you have such disgusting body habits and you're not keeping yourself clean and you chew on your nails and that's disgusting and disgusting people are sick. So, I think we that's enough wasting time on Lisa. So Lisa, thank you so much for your constructive criticism and how I can better improve the content on my channel. And I'm going to take a quick sip of tea here because, man, oh, that's good. So I haven't really brewed a really great cup of tea in a while, and we're getting like rainy, cold weather, cold relatively speaking for Southern California. It's probably going to be like 60 degrees outside. Ooh, freezing. But sorry, having lived around the United States and having lived in places where like water will freeze before it hits the ground, it always makes me laugh when you go outside and you see people in parkas and it's like 65 and you're like, come on, this is beautiful. I'm wearing my t-shirt hoodie. Ooh. But no, I haven't brewed a really great cup of tea in a while, and just with rain on the windows, some clouds in the sky, that kind of felt like the right weather to approach a cup of tea. So I'm digging into this now. Tea purists probably won't enjoy what I'm sipping on right now. It's sort of a chai oolong, spiced chai oolong blend. So it's not an authentic, sort of variety of tea, but it smells like cider and it's effing delicious. So on that note, we should probably talk about today's holidays. So as we're getting into the major holidays, the Christmases, the Hanukkahs, the Kwanzas, etc., today is Holiday Food Drive for Needy Animals Day. And we're going to talk about last week's show where I shared with you guys some of the more immediate feelings that our family was going through over the loss of our beloved pet, Bigelow Bear. And he was a Shar-Pei. We picked him up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but we're always on the lookout for good causes. And so holiday food drive for needy animals. There's so many shelters out there that are scraping by. It's difficult for them to pick up funding. Animals are having to be put down. If there's any extra money in that holiday budget, I would highly recommend, and you're a dog lover, I'm not going to put this on everybody, but if you care about dogs and cats and other stray animals, if you were to research the opportunities in your local area to share or to give or to provide, or maybe just go buy a bag of dog food and drop it off for them, whatever opportunities you might have to help them out. I know the people that work for those shelters are always greatly appreciative of those kinds of efforts, because it's all too easy to kind of forget about our furry family, our furry pals during the holiday season, with so much going on around us. That could be one opportunity to spend a little holiday cheer. Today is International Mountain Day, so celebrate your favorite mountain around the world. It doesn't even have to be a mountain in your backyard. But my personal shout out for International Mountain Day, of course, goes to the Sandias in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Beautiful mountain range. Absolutely stunning to shoot at sunset, just golds and purples and pinks. If you ever get a chance to go through Albuquerque, first of all, it's the best Mexican food on the planet. And you also are going to be privy to some amazing sights and big desert skies. Today is National Noodle Ring Day. I don't know what that is. Today is National Salesperson's Day. So if you know a salesperson or if you're in sales, today is the day to celebrate for you or that person that you might know who's in sales. And today is official Lost and Found Day. And I would celebrate that day, but I have lost where I am supposed to celebrate it because it is not found. That was a terrible joke. And now we can get off of our holidays. So I did not have a call to action last week for photography. So I'm going to go into screen share here if YouTube lets me, and I'm hoping this isn't what is crashing YouTube, is being able to share photos, because this is kind of a big deal for me. I like sharing photos. So, but last week, this came courtesy of RGB Plaza. He's a regular contributor to this podcast, and he didn't tell me what phone he was shooting with, but this is something that he shared with me on Twitter, and he took this early this morning, and this is what a longer exposure and manual controls can do. If I remember correctly, I think he's on a lower powered phone, something like a Lumia 640. And again, he's just been sharing some phenomenal shots, and it's great seeing like this kind of a setup where he's even got, from a smartphone, he's even got a little bit of that crescent moon off in the distance. You see those really great color gradations in the sky. Again, what we can do from our phones is just effing phenomenal. And so thank you so much for sharing. But last week, I did my wrap up on holiday food and I forgot someone. So I've got to make up for that. And this photo comes courtesy of PDX Matthew. And PDX Matthew writes, the obligatory pumpkin pie pick, just a delicious, squishy pumpkin pie with whipped cream on top. And I just had to apologize profusely because I missed this photo. I had it downloaded, but I missed sharing it last week. And I think I shared one of his other photos, like a praying mantis picture that he took. But anyway, so PDX Matthew, thank you for sending this along last week, even though I didn't get to share it for the actual holiday wrap up show. So let me kill this right here, and I'm back. So what I want to put out there, the call to action, the CTA for this week's podcast, if you want your photos featured on this podcast, I want to see lights, holiday lights or candles or traffic lights, I guess, if that's what you care about. But we're in this season where a lot of people are out there decorating. Maybe homes are getting decorated. Maybe you just have a sad little Charlie Brown tree, but you want to show off your decorating skills or your holiday light skills. And it doesn't have to be Christmas lights. I'm not putting that on you guys, or holiday lights. If you just you go out to dinner and there's an amazing candle, that's burning by your plate of food and you want to share that candlelight with me, I want to see your depictions of light taken from your smartphone. What's the best, coolest photo that you can pull off of lights of some kind? Maybe it's bokeh, maybe it's a really cool landscape shot, stuff that's you've got like sparkling, they look like stars over a landscape at night. Maybe you found something really cool that looks awesome during the day and you can share a way that light is depicted during the day. I want to see what you guys can come up with. So use that hashtag SGGQA, and share on Instagram or Twitter or Google Plus, anywhere that you can use a hashtag, and I'll find it and we'll show those off next week on next week's broadcast. So now I think we can get into the show proper. So from last week's show, like I mentioned earlier when we were talking about feeding hungry animals. Last week, we spent a little time remembering my dog Bigelow Bear. He was a 12, almost 13-year-old Shar-Pei, just a cantankerous ball of wrinkles. And I got an amazing comment. So I got a number of amazing comments, and I want to thank all the people out there that were sharing their condolences, sharing their memories of their own pets. It was a nice little catharsis happening in the comments on that video. And I can't thank you enough, because it's through experiences like that we all kind of learn to deal with grief and learn to sort of move on. But one comment kind of hit me in particular, and I wanted to read it. It's a slightly longer comment, so we're going to kind of break it up and talk about stuff throughout the comment. But this came from Jay Urnash, who writes, hi, Juan, another great show. I look forward to watching the next one. I just wanted to touch on a few things on the loss of a pet. I'm so sorry for the loss of Biggs. In Christmas 2008, I had to make the decision to let go of my best friend, Muffin, a 13-year-old yellow Labrador. On Christmas Eve, she had a severe stroke, and the pain I experienced and still sometimes experience was and is immense. I read something recently that put grief into a great perspective, and I'm paraphrasing, but essentially they said, grief comes in waves, first in constant, giant, overwhelming waves, and then in less and less frequent, somewhat more manageable waves. But the waves still come and will never stop. And I wish I could say it gets easier, but I can't. I can say it becomes more manageable. Still, I can't watch dog food commercials, though. I just know that we're here for you. And Jornash, it's Absolutely true. To go along with what you're saying, in terms of that way that we experienced grief, and in the first day, that day after he passed, my face was bruised from crying so hard. And every day it's like you wake up and there's a little bit less, but there are still those triggers. Like a couple nights ago, I came home from a meeting at a PR rep, and I'm walking in the door and I'm getting ready to cook dinner. And I'm thinking, oh, you know what? I shouldn't take off my shoes because I still need to walk the dog. And then everything froze. Time just stopped when you had that realization, like, no, I'm never going to walk that dog ever again. I can go ahead and take my shoes off. And there's guilt and there's joy and there's pain and there's sorrow. And it just hits you all at once. It's like it just slams into the back of your head. And for to go along what you were saying, and stuff that we've been reading up on in dealing with grief, something that really struck me too about the notion of getting back to normal, that there is no such thing as getting back to normal. When a major life event happens, positive or negative, your life changes. And so really it's up to us to kind of recognize that change, to respond to that change, and then to find what the new normal is going to be moving forward. That's really kind of where we've come to grips, so as much as we could, in how, how little time we've had to deal with this, is that eventually there will be a new normal, and we don't know what that looks like. And eventually we'll not hurt so bad, and we'll not be crying so hard, and we'll eventually be able to get a new dog that our daughter can grow up with. Urnash goes on to write, along those same lines and along the lines of picture life balance, I definitely understand the guilt about not feeling like you were present enough with him because of taking pictures. However, my guilt comes from not taking more pictures of my dog. I know it sounds odd, but I only have a few photos of her. That's partially due to the fact that cameras on phones were not very prominent until towards the end of her life. But I'm just so sad that I don't have more pictures of her. I think it's hard to find a balance between preserving memories and experiencing the moment. My brother just welcomed a new daughter into the world, and I'm struggling with that balance because I live 2 hours away and I can't get enough pictures of her. But I wanted to be in the moment with her instead of stopping to tell someone to take a picture. I hope I never forget the mental image of her looking at me for the first time, but I might. And that's kind of scary. And there's no good answer for that struggle for that balance. And that's exactly what we're coping with right now. And again, I've got amazing comments, amazing support from everyone out in the comments in the community on last week's podcast to talk about that. And we're all sort of struggling. It seems like that's a very common struggle that we're all going through right now, is trying to find what that looks like, or how we each are going to handle that balance. And that all of us feel like we're not balancing it right, like we're not really finding that solution. And maybe first, this sounds silly, I take solace in the fact that we all seem to be struggling with it. So maybe that means it's a sliding scale. It's some days you do better than others, and you just hope that you can hold on to what is actually going to be important. And eventually you're going to let go of some of this angst in being able to move on and realize, like, oh, maybe I don't need all of this, or maybe this, I was there for the big moments, and it's okay if I didn't have photos of that because I could remember it. And during last week's podcast, we also talked a little bit about experiences people had while shopping for technology. And so Urnash wraps up his comment and he says, one last thing, and then I'll stop rambling. I used to be a blue shirt many, many years ago. It means he used to work at Best Buy. The media department was my forte, specifically video games and music. However, sometimes they would throw us into other departments that we knew nothing about. That does not surprise me. And again, I want to be careful, like, you meet someone at a Best Buy and maybe they're being kind of douchey about it. But more often than not, I kind of just feel like I'm running into people at Best Buy that haven't been properly prepared for the section that they're working in. The management would get upset with me if I didn't try to make a sale right then and there, even though I didn't know the first thing about refrigerators. I guess the difference between me and the people you and the others spoke about was that I would never be afraid to tell the customer that I didn't know the answer to their question, but that I would do my best to help them find the answer. My managers were never too happy with me about that, but I'd rather say I don't know instead of giving incorrect or lousy information. Anyways, congratulations on the book. Very proud of you, and I can't wait to buy it. You have a great way of explaining things to make them easier to understand, just like you did answering the viewer listener questions in this video. Thanks for all you do. Urnash, thank you so much for that comment. And also, big props, man. I think it's a really big deal in this day and age to be able to say, I don't know. like we always kind of want to rush to some notion of knowledge or some notion of experience that sometimes we can't really back up. And I've been totally guilty of that, getting into arguments about things like, you know what, I actually maybe don't know as much as I think I do about what it is that I'm arguing about. So I think it's always a sign of maturity, and I think it's always a sign of intelligence when someone can rightfully say, like, I don't know, but I can help you, or I don't know, but we can search together, or I don't know, but I can find someone who does. I think that's so much better than the experiences we were describing last week during the show, where people were claiming to have some sort of knowledge or authority on a subject, which they obviously did not have. Those assertions were patently untrue. So again, I just want to say another heartfelt thank you to the community, all the people that were dropping comments and watching the show and listening to the show. It really meant a lot to Marie and I to have that support from you guys. Again, it just drove home yet again how much I care about this community and how much I've been, how grateful I've been for how it's evolved, because we're getting amazing discussion, but we're also building these sort of cyber friendships that mean a great deal to me. And that's really why I got into talking about technology in the first place. I liked meeting other like-minded people. I liked talking about this. I liked getting into the nuance, digging into the guts of this stuff. And more so than just like, oh, it's a great Consumer Reports thing. It's got 4 stars and you should buy it. Like, I didn't care about that. I really wanted to get into something deeper than that. And you all have been along for that ride in an amazing way. So, getting into actual new stuff this week, I'm going to take another sip of tea. I hope my voice lasts for all this. Ugh. So, getting into new stuff this week, I got the new Lumia 950 is in the house now. I've got it over here. It's charging wirelessly on my old Nokia pad. I need to get some new wireless chargers. I have 2 of the original first generation, not that great Nokia Qi chargers. But here is the 950. I'm going to move this out of the way so I can actually see what I'm doing. I went with the 950 because I kind of wanted to continue examining phones. Like, if you've been following my channel, you would know that I'm not the biggest fan of phablets. Super, super large phones with my tiny little average sized Hobbit hands. I like that 5 to 5.2 inch size screen. In fact, if I could get like a 4.9 or a 5 flat with a quad HD display, I would be a really happy camper. So I know the specs on this aren't as beefy. It's slightly lower powered hardware than what they packed in the XL version, but I'm still curious to see what Microsoft is able to do with this hardware, because it brings us right in line phones like the LG V10. They're both rocking the same Qualcomm 808 series processor. It runs a little bit cooler. I'm hoping that'll mean positive things for battery life. And the camera experience should still be on point, because it's the former Nokia team. We know that the pure view Zeiss lens camera sensor should be a pretty big deal. Now, what's funny is Microsoft sent along a little care package to help review the phone. And one of the things, so we've got the little dock. This is the dock where you can plug the phone into this dock and then plug this dock into monitors, and it acts a lot like a full-fledged Windows 8 PC. But what I'm actually silly excited about in this little care package is Microsoft sent along their Bluetooth keyboard. So it's this flexible, soft. I don't know what this is called. What this kind of plastic is. It's a it's a very flexible membrane style keyboard, but it just flops open in half, and it's a nice key travel. It feels a lot like a Surface cover keyboard, an older Surface cover keyboard. It doesn't quite have the same key raise, key travel as the newer Surface keyboard. And then their little collapsible arc mouse. So this is I really wish they had sent a Bluetooth mouse, because you connect it to your phone over Bluetooth. You don't have to tie up a USB port, but you plug this little receiver into the dock, and you've got a pretty decent, a very passable PC experience, and it's all super portable. And I think that's going to be kind of the big talking point from Microsoft moving into the future, is how they can blur the lines. They've already blurred the lines between tablet and laptop, right? You've got the Surface Pro. I think their big push is going to be to deliver a Surface phone next year, maybe the year following, with an Intel chipset, so that then you can blur the line between phone and computer. I think that'll be a big play from them. And if their current strategy is any indication, I think that's definitely the line that we're walking right now. So, but it's just kind of silly, when going through and I'm opening up this package and I get the keyboard, I'm like a sucker for a really good Bluetooth keyboard. So I'm curious to see how that one's going to perform. I gotta say, for as much as I'm glad, I'm really happy to see a new Windows phone. Um, I'm not entirely impressed with the hand feel and build quality on this 950. I keep going back to phones like the 930 here in the United States. We called it the Icon, and I really liked that direction Microsoft was heading with the 830 and the 930 with those, or I guess those were Nokia phones. They weren't Microsoft phones, but they had metal edges and a really nice polycarb back. And now I pick up the 950, and the build quality is not that much separated from when you pick up one of their inexpensive phones, like a Lumia 640. So you hold a 640 and the 950 in your hands, and they feel like they could be almost exactly the same device. And that's not kind of what I want from a flagship phone. I want something that's going to feel, I don't know, a little more stylish or a little nicer. And I don't necessarily need them to go to what Samsung's doing, building things out of glass. I would never expect Microsoft slash the old former Nokia hardware team to do something like that. But then you see like the great strides that LG has made this year with the V10, stainless steel rails and a nice, grippy backplate, and just some really good updates over their former plasticky build quality, to then see Microsoft sort of travel in the opposite direction, where Nokia used to have this great funky, edgy, modern design, and the 950 just kind of feels plain. And I know you can pop the backplate and get other backplates for it, but you want something that's going to feel special out of the box when you're spending that much money on a phone. So I don't know. We'll see. I still have to go through the camera review. The speaker test has already been uploaded, so you can hear the speaker on the Lumia 950. That's live on the channel now. Spoiler alert, it's decent. It's probably not my favorite, but it's definitely not the worst. And then I've already started shooting clips for the camera review. Of course, with the rainy weather here in California, I want to give the 950 a fair shake. So I want to make sure that I'm giving it good sunlight, good opportunities. I want to the difference between good shadowed pics and good bright sunlight pics. And then we're going to cobble that all over together over the weekend. And hopefully on Monday, you'll have a really killer camera review from the 950, because I haven't seen one from other tech bloggers. I've seen people putting up some clips like, oh, it's the best camera, or it's a really good camera. And then they like take a picture of like a gumball machine. You're like, come on, son. That's not a camera review. Come on, word. Yeah. Dig it. So I got a comment on my Lumia 950 audio test where we run the speaker through a series of audio clips and a bit of Night of the Living Dead. And I got a comment almost instantly from Brian Castor. Brian writes, "I really love watching your videos. However, I rarely watch these speaker tests because I usually watch on my phone. It seems kind of pointless to listen to the audio of a phone through a phone. Either way, keep it up. Keep up the great work." So, Brian, I totally appreciate, like, so if you're watching YouTube videos through the speaker on your phone, you're absolutely right. After I've sort of cobbled together the test and then uploaded it to YouTube, so YouTube's going to do a little compression there. And I do try and make sure that I'm illustrating the differences between the devices, even though I know that YouTube is going to squish that video feed a little bit. But if you were listening to the speaker, you're right. You're not going to hear any differences between these devices. Though, if you have a slightly more recent smartphone, say in the last 2 years, it's got a decent headphone jack on there, you could pop on some headphones, and I think you'd be able to hear some of those differences between these various devices. In fact, even if you're listening on a desktop or a laptop, I would recommend listening over headphones, and I think you'd have a clearer sense of how these things are playing. Because one of the things that I don't think a lot of people understand about audio is one of the most important factors in recording is the space that you're recording in. So if two phones are actually pretty close in terms of output volume, and maybe they represent certain frequencies of sound in similar ways, the fact that they're both being recorded in this office is going to pull that audio pretty close. Like, you're not going to be able to hear outlandish differences between, say, an LG V10 and a Samsung Note 5. You will hear subtle differences if you really get that audio into your ears with a good pair of headphones. It might be like, oh, I think the V10 is doing a more even job of representing audio, and the Samsung is doing a little bit more smiley face EQ. But on the whole, they're going to sound pretty similar once we start working at that tier. Now, what is kind of fun though is when you find some devices that maybe don't perform as well as others. I just put up a review of a Chinese tablet, the Techlast X98 Pro, and the speakers on that thing are not great. So if you fire up the Techlast review and then you go and listen to something like an HTC One M8 and you compare those two audio files, it doesn't matter what speakers you play those back on, you will clearly hear the difference between those two devices. So those are my initial thoughts on the Lumia 950. Again, just sort of a little brief commentary there on the first comment that I got on the audio test. Definitely be on the lookout for more coverage of that coming out soon. And then on the social media channels, like if you follow me on Instagram, I've already been uploading some photos from that camera. It is a great camera so far. I've been impressed. I still think it'll be an interesting showdown. I think the Lumia 950 versus the LG V10 is probably the biggest comparison, a camera comparison I'll do this year. This is the one I'm most looking forward to because I already, and this is again, it's kind of a spoiler. I think the optics on the Lumia are a little bit better than the V10, but the V10 software is better than what the Lumia is currently rocking for its camera app. So it's a really interesting showdown between hardware and software in what we can do to get our photos and videos shot. So moving right along, this week we're also saying goodbye to the BlackBerry Priv. My review time with this phone from BlackBerry is coming to a close, and I'll be sending it back to AT&T. Major thanks for letting me spend as much time as I did with it. This thing got to travel with me through the Southwest. It was a fun experience. I'm trying to be careful, like in what or in how I'm describing some of these things. Like the full review is out, right? So sorry, I just got an instant message from people on they're saying that they can't see the live feed. So we're just gonna keep recording this and people will be able to watch it after the fact. Unfortunately, it looks like YouTube did jack me up again. Super fun. Now let's see. That's so frustrating how YouTube does that. Okay, so moving right along, getting back to the BlackBerry. Yes, my review time is up with the BlackBerry, and though in dealing with Android on BlackBerry, I'm a big fan of the hardware. I thought this hardware was great. I think it's really interesting seeing BlackBerry try to tweak the Android software experience. So that's been kind of interesting watching them deal or watching them try and make sure that their brand is still being represented on a new platform. But I got a number of comments and a number of replies from people on this review, and I think it's kind of interesting because we keep talking in the tech space like, oh well, if they would just use Android, then they would be more popular and more people would be buying their phones. I don't know that that's true. And I think the BlackBerry is a good representation of that because now that BlackBerry has put out an Android phone, a lot of the comments coming back from people were, oh, well, they were just too late. If they had done this years ago, then they would have been more successful. So I think we can kind of keep moving the goalposts. And I think part of the issue here is people are not likely to take a risk with their smartphone, right? So they want to see that the company is doing stuff, but we don't know always how to properly express that. So we say things like, well, I'm currently using Samsung and I know Samsung phones really well. So now that BlackBerry has their own operating system, I can't just jump over to BlackBerry's operating system. I'm an Android person, so I'm going to stick with Samsung until I see them move to Android. Well, once they do move to Android, you're still used to using your Samsung. It doesn't mean that it's just a one-to-one transition. You're used to the hardware, you're used to the features, you're used to the software that Samsung brings to the table. So then we say things like, "Oh, well, if they'd done that years ago, then it would have been fine." When I really think the situation is BlackBerry has yet to prove themselves in this market, building out phones over a consistent period of time and showing that they can grow, that they can evolve, that they can support Android properly, and that they can build a user base organically. It worries me because we've seen them go from the classic BlackBerry OS to the OS BBOS 10 now to Android. It makes them feel a little less consistent. It makes them feel inconsistent. So when we look at things like the replies, I'm going to read through these really, really quickly. That's kind of the sense that I'm getting. So people, when they're saying like, "Oh, I think they were just too late," well, maybe, but probably not. So from Tanner M, from DJ Shark, we'll start with DJ Shark 9000. I love your reviews. I'm in the mobile business, and I can tell you, BlackBerry is way too late to the game. Android and iOS are so good; it's nearly impossible for any others to compete. If BlackBerry went Android 3 years ago, it might have been different. See, told you. North Wolf. First off, great review. The lightsaber. Let's see if we can make phones even bigger and more inconvenient than they already are. Now, what he's talking about is the fact that the screen slides up, but I actually think this is really well balanced considering how long and tall this phone is. Anyway, I have hunting knives smaller than this gem. BlackBerry arrived late for the party and doesn't bring anything aside from hassle. How do these misfires still exist? A huge L for a dying company, which I loved so much. Cheers. And this one comes from Shooter Boss with features on other phones like voice to text and slide typing on Windows Phone. I don't see the Priv's physical keyboard being a big reason for me to buy it. Still, I wish BlackBerry the best. It's good that more competitors are entering the smartphone market, and it would be great if BlackBerry made a comeback. And I got a number of these kinds of comments and replies, all sort of echoing the same sentiment that maybe it's just that they're too late, or they don't have a feature set which really compels people to move away from their current solutions. So one of the things that I did want to showcase, though, and this came from Tanner M. During my Priv review, one of the things that took me by surprise was the fact that when you boot this thing up fresh from a cold boot, it takes a while to get into the operating system. So I was a little concerned over that from a performance standpoint. This, again, it uses the same hardware as the LG V10. So I did a real-time boot up. It's a little window in the corner of the review, and you can see it go. And it goes over 2 minutes to get into the actual operating system. So I got this comment from Tanner M. He says, great review, but you didn't mention why the BlackBerry took a bit to boot up. The reason why it takes so long is because it's encrypted. When you put in the swipe password, it de-encrypted the whole phone so you can use it. This only has to be done when booting up. And so, yeah, I mean, once you boot up the phone, it's very easy to turn it on, turn it off, turn on the screen, turn off the screen. It's a very fluid experience for the most part. But one of the things that took me by surprise, because I knew that BlackBerry had applied encryption. I did mention encryption later on in the review, but I could have sworn that I had seen boot up tests from phones like the Nexus 6P, which made it through that process significantly faster than what BlackBerry was capable of. So I wonder if maybe that's an issue with Marshmallow, that maybe Google's solution being baked natively into Android is more efficient, or if maybe I just missed the boat. Maybe I just completely missed that the boot up test that I saw for the Nexus 6P was on a somehow not encrypted phone. So I would very much like to hear from you all if there's some solution or something that you've seen where the Nexus boots up really, really quickly, because I still really haven't spent a lot of time with the Nexus. I haven't gotten one to review, and I haven't really played with one for any significant length of time. So if you've seen anything like that where the Nexus can boot up really quickly, definitely send it my way, because I'll be curious to see how that would actually compare with BlackBerry's solution, because BlackBerry's still rolling Lollipop. We don't know when there's going to be a Marshmallow update for the Priv, and their solution sits on top of Android 5.1. It's not baked into Android 5.1. So Tanner M, but thank you, Tanner M, for the clarification on that. I like I said, I'll be curious to see if anyone has any better experiences with phones that employ encryption, because I do think it's an important feature, how you can protect the data on your device. But what we saw from the Nexus 6, not the Nexus 6P, but from the Nexus 6, is that consumers aren't always prepared for the kinds of performance hits that style of protection can deliver, that it can happen with that type of situation. So I did get one other question. This question comes from my name, which is fitting because it probably was asked, hey, what's, type in your name. And he's like, my name. So there you go. My name on, that's such a lame joke. I'm sorry. On the Priv review, my name writes, true. I would personally take the mid-range Nexus 5X over the BlackBerry Priv. By the way, Juan, what's your favorite Android this year and why? Oh man, this is a loaded question, my name. I had to drink some more tea just to fortify myself for this reply. Okay, so my favorite Android. For years, I have been a Samsung kid. I when it comes to Android devices, I've loved the Note line. Even though I'm not a fan of phablets, I feel Samsung did an amazing job of answering why someone would want to use two hands on a smartphone. And then you look at phones like the Active, and this is still, I think, one of the best phones made this year, the Galaxy S6 Active. It's rugged. It's got a humongous battery. It's powerful. It's quick. It's got an amazing camera. You don't care if it gets wet. You just clean it in a sink. It's a phenomenal lifestyle experience. But having played with the number of phones that I've played with this year, the phone I keep reaching for more often than not, without even really thinking about it, has been the LG V10. The battery life has, as I've been using it more, I've been less impressed with the battery life. This thing can drain pretty quickly. But in having power management solutions on tap anyway, like portable batteries or car chargers, excuse me, having those types of ways to refuel the phone as I'm using it have sort of taken the edge off of what would normally be a major complaint from me, in that, oh, it doesn't run for as long. And with just a little bit of management, babysitting it just a little bit, this thing made it through an entire day of shooting at Disneyland a couple days ago. And I was just getting into the power saver, that 15% buffer where it goes into low power mode. And that's with shooting a lot of 4K video and photos and stills. So I can't turn this into a 2-day phone. And that's maybe one of the issues that I think Samsung has addressed better on the Galaxy S6 Active. But almost everything else I kind of like better on LG's solution this year. I like the camera software better. I like the durability is almost up there with the Active with these stainless steel rails. I like being able to pop in a memory card, even though there's 64 gigabytes of storage built into it. It's just been a wonderful all-around experience. So that's been the phone that I've been gravitating towards mostly this year. And I'd love to hear from you guys. What phones have you been using this year? What phones have you been most interested in learning about this year? And also, has anyone been looking at maybe some kind of budget solution? Because I know for a fact that even though my wife has been playing, my wife played with the Galaxy X S6, the LG G4, and the phone she picks up the most is the Alcatel Idol 3, the 4.7-inch Idol 3. She likes the screen size. She likes the front-facing speakers. That's her jam. So it's been kind of funny. Like, she's been playing with two of the most expensive phones of the year and one of the least expensive phones of the year, and the cheap phone won. So I would love to hear from you guys what phones you've been palling around with this year, because it's been a funny kind of year, I think, for tech. The top end is plateauing. We know it's plateauing. We know that next year, the improvements that we get to our flagship phones are not gonna blow us away. But all of the stuff surrounding phones is starting to get really good. Wearables, virtual reality, augmented reality, those types of things, I think, are really what's going to move us forward into a post-smartphone world where everything sort of surrounds us in a very intelligent way. And maybe it's a little less important exactly what phone we have in our pocket. So moving right along. This one just kind of made me laugh. So I want to talk about this from my Galaxy S6 Edge Plus review. And I've got my Edge Plus right here. So it was really, I got two comments from one gentleman. And it's a thing, like, in showing off these phones, I've gotten a little spiky about how hard it is to shoot good video of these devices. That, I'm spending a lot of time trying to clean them off to make them look good. And I kind of had a reckoning with the Galaxy S6, the regular S6, in that I'm not shooting a commercial, I'm shooting a review. So part of that review can be what these things look like in real life, even if they get kind of gross and fingerprint smudgy. But I got this great. It was great because I think the S6 Edge Plus is maybe one of the most beautiful devices ever designed, even if I don't think it's the most practical phone to own. And so I got these two comments from the Compton 1936. And so I can and I can almost tell exactly where he was in the review with each of these comments. But the first comment, super short and sweet, super simple, beautiful device, period. All right. Okay. I agree. I think it's a gorgeous looking device. I think it belongs in a museum under a glass case in beautiful lighting. And then a couple minutes later, he drops, too many fingerprints, wash your effing hands. Which I thought was kind of funny and kind of fitting, considering, what I was talking about in the review. And I think for a lot of people, maybe you don't realize just what kind of oils and secretions your body actually generates. but they become painfully apparent when you're handling all glass devices. And it doesn't matter. I mean, like, okay, so I keep my hands relatively clean. I'm handling a newborn baby girl. I'm constantly using wipes and washing them in steaming hot water. And I still pick up this phone and the back is covered in smudges. I can even show you on this crappy webcam just how smudgy the back of this phone is. And I don't use this phone a lot. Like I just got done telling you guys, I use the V10 like all the time. But you know what? The V10 has this textured back that I don't have to worry about fingerprint smudges on. So I just thought that was funny because I spend an inordinate amount of time handling this phone and wiping both the front and the back on my shirt, and it's terrible. And I can't. I can't. So, but the Compton 1936, along with Lisa from the beginning of this video, who told me not to chew on my disgusting fingernails. Thank you for critiquing my personal hygiene. I definitely appreciate it. So I'm going to take a quick pause here halfway through this video. The way that YouTube does their live streams has now gotten sort of multiple step complicated where I broadcast this video, but they let me broadcast this video private, which is frustrating because it meant that for half of this video, the live chat was completely shut down because no one could watch the video, but it was still live streaming. So things like that are getting really frustrating, and how YouTube is splitting off, you know, like the hangout style content that used to come from Google Plus and the gaming content that they're hoping to fight Twitch with, and it's getting super complicated. Every week now, something has changed or something is different that affects the way that I produce this show. So for those of you just tuning in now, thank you very much for joining this podcast. I hope you enjoy it. There's probably a good 30 minutes of content before now that I hope you enjoy. So going through, and a bunch of people just landed in the live chat. We got Mike Dreef, who is not Mike Beef, by the way. We did establish that in the live chat. We've got My Name. Welcome. We just talked about one of your comments. And we got RGB Plaza. And RGB Plaza, thank you so much. Thank you for joining too. I shared one of your photos at the very beginning of this video. So after this broadcast is done, definitely check that out because I loved that sunset pic that you took. And I wanted to thank you for sharing it. But of course, I thanked you for sharing it while this was still a private broadcast. So moving right along, I got a comment on my Note 5 review. And we talked about this a little, maybe not last week, maybe it was 3 weeks ago. But this came from Chalk PCH, CHOC who writes, "Great review. I upgraded to the Note 5 from the horrible Galaxy S4, and I'm happy with my upgrade so far. With that being said, I do wish I had experienced at least one earlier version of the Note since people miss the old features. I don't miss the IR Blaster remote control because I hardly ever used it on my S4. However, it was a nice feature. Looking at these reviews, I guess I could have gotten the S6 Edge Plus or perhaps gotten the same satisfaction from even purchasing the Note 4. So, Chalk PCH, first of all, just enjoy your Note, man. The Note 5 is a beast of a phone. It's one of the best gaming platforms I've ever worked with. It is still an excellent productivity tool with the S Pen. I wouldn't be overly concerned about the longevity of that phone, especially seeing as how Samsung should be delivering a good 18 months worth of updates. And that hardware is going to take you well into at least the next 2 generations of Android. So this is the thing that I always kind of get a little spiky about, and why I don't like doing battle comparison videos the way that most people like to do them. I don't like declaring winners. I don't like telling people what they should buy. I don't like making people feel bad about what they have bought. That's not really what I like about producing on this channel. I am trying to share my experiences, and my experiences with the Note 5 have not been stellar, but I still want to make it clear. I think it's an excellent smartphone. You know, I think it's a top tier flagship device. It's a power productivity handset. Now, when we look at the rest of the Android landscape, there are other phones that I think compete with it really well. And depending on how much you're going to spend on your phone, there could be phones that you could spend more or less money on for different types of experiences. But ultimately, what I want to say is, once you throw down money for a phone like that, you know, the amount of money that you're going to invest, the amount of time and money you're going to invest in an Note 5, shut off reviews. Stop listening to people like me. Don't go seeking people talking bad about the purchase that you've just made. Take a little time, at least a month, to just sit down and enjoy what you've bought. Like I said, I have mentioned this in previous podcasts. I'm going to keep bringing this up because I think it's just better for our mental health overall. Like, I think we're going to get angsty. We're going to get, so full of anxiety. Like, you're going to torture ourselves. Like, did I buy the right thing? Did I spend money on the right thing? Did I get my money's worth? And well, yeah, you will. Just don't fixate on the fact that new technology is going to come out that's going to blow your phone away in 6 months, that a new bestest phone ever is going to be released the day after you buy the phone that you've got. We know these things are going to happen. So there's no point in torturing ourselves over, did I make the right buy? You bought a top tier smartphone, Chalk PCH. Just enjoy it. It's going to be great. It's going to be fine. Just relax. If it absolutely does melt down on you, maybe you can swap it out for something else. But I seriously doubt that's going to happen, especially with the way that you described your experiences with the Galaxy S4. I mean, think about it. You rode the S4 for 2 full years. The Note 5 is going to feel like that great leapfrog over where you were before. I think you're going to do just fine. And that takes us into, because we talking about the Note 5, and that takes me into, it's a little bit of a tease, but then also a comment that I got on a video that I produced recently. Oh, excuse me, and I cannot keep my throat in gear. Now, first of all, tea probably might not be the best thing to be drinking for that. But anyway, so I did a year-end wrap up for Samsung, talking about the Note 5 moving into the end of the year. I did a year-end wrap up on Samsung, and I was happy to have Trisha Hirschberger, formerly of SourceFed, currently on The Escapist, producing her own content on her own YouTube channel. And she came over because we bonded when we met a little while ago, probably almost 2 years ago. We bonded over the fact that we were both major Samsung fans. That she actually worked as a PR rep for Samsung for a short period of time. And so we were both Note 4 fanatics. Loved the Note 4. Note 4, Note 4, Note 4. She still uses the Note 4. I still have a Note 4. And then we both really liked the Active as sort of a backup phone, considering the different devices that we get to play with. And so this year, we both went out to a water park on an AT&T trip to play with the Galaxy S6 Active. We were taking it down water slides. I've got a video on this channel. You can check it out. It was super, super fun. And so she came over and we had a long chat. I mean, we talked for over an hour, but I cut it down to around 20 minutes. And she shared her thoughts of where Samsung had gone this year, what she was looking forward to next year, and then sort of the more distant future, what we will hope to see in smartphones a couple years from now. And so I got a comment from No One But Myself. And No One But Myself writes, very nice. Although the whole switching phones thing is hard. And so part of the conversation I had with Trish was not trying to diminish the teething pain someone might go through when you pick up a new phone. So like if you've got someone in your family who's an iPhone user, but they're thinking they might want to jump ship to Android, I think in our excitement, for those of us who are geeks and are fans of certain companies, in our excitement to sort of encourage that switch, we might gloss over some of the difficulties someone might have in switching smartphones, even in the Android ecosystem. So if you meet like an HTC fan, but they're really thinking about picking up an LG, I think in that excitement, like, oh yeah, and the camera's better, and this is better, and you're gonna love this, and it's more durable, blah, 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 blah. But every button will be different, and your entire UI will be tweaked subtly, so that menus perform in a slightly different way, and your app drawer works in a slightly different way, and your notification shade is going to look a little different. I think we gloss over some of that adjustment period. Now, for those of you who are watching this channel, and I do have viewers now, so that's exciting. For those of you who are watching this live stream, you're obviously smarter than the average bear. You care a little bit more about technology. You're probably the person in your family who is responsible for a lot of the tech discussion that happens in your household or in your circle of family and friends. In that, though, I think we sort of lose sight of what other people might struggle with when they might rely on a piece of technology just for the basics, or they might rely on a piece of technology for very specific reasons. And so we talked a little bit about that. Trisha and I talked a little bit about that. And so that's where No One But Myself is sort of replying to that discussion. And he says, although the whole switching phone things is hard, I think you underestimate the average consumer, at least for the basic tasks. For more in-depth tasks, I agree, especially as the OSs get more and more similar. Of course, I'm a bit biased given my weekly usage is Android, Fire OS, Windows, iOS, Windows Phone, Windows Mobile, and OS 10. and my experience lending phones is fairly limited. Actually, using the Fire Phone more and more, I think it might end up being my primary device. Fire Phone, man, that's bold. Almost the perfect combo of how I use Windows Phone and Android, save for the SD card slot not being there, and 64 gig on the 6S I can live with. 32, not quite enough. I hope you do more of this kind of content. I liked it a lot. Actively expanding your opinion and hearing from someone else. And know about myself, I completely agree because I get tired of the sound of my own voice. So I'm hoping that more people will join me in the office. We had this great little interview set up. It was totally radio style. A lot of people were talking shit because I had two channels of audio and they're like, oh, you need to not hard pan one person left and right. And you're like, no, that's just actually how those mics work. You know, if you listen to the audio, it's like there's bleed on both channels. It's just that those are directional radio style microphones. So that's why you hear someone more in the left ear and more in the right ear, but they lined up with the video. So I don't see what your problem is. But coming back to your longer point, no one but myself, that idea is what I completely agree, because that has also been a problem that I've had in tech discussion of late, where we completely belittle the consumer education, the consumer experience. We act like anyone who's not at our level in terms of following tech and being a fan of tech is just a blithering idiot. And I really want to make sure that we're respecting the fact that people are better educated than that. I think with the introduction of the iPhone, it helped educate consumers to mobile technology and mobile data, and using mobile programs and apps and services and things like that. And I think people have actually gotten pretty savvy at that kind of consumption level experience. So I never mean to besmirch or belittle or talk down to people, because I really want to elevate this conversation. And I think most consumers are game to step this conversation up a bit. But what I definitely don't want to underestimate, though, are those challenges that people might face. And I think it's very telling, your experience, no one but myself, is very varied. I don't think people have really sort of embraced the diversification of their mobility and computing products. I really think that's a little bit more unique for a consumer to say, I want an iPhone and I want an Android tablet and I want a Windows PC. I still think the conventional wisdom, though I disagree with it, the conventional wisdom is, well, if you want things to work the best, you need to have all Apple or all Microsoft, or maybe get an Android phone, but keep your Windows PC. There's very little experimentation with spreading things out nearly as much as you have. I mean, you're talking Fire OS, man. I have a Fire phone somewhere in this office. And even that for me was a little like, I'm fighting it. I'm fighting it the whole time because it's different. Not because it's bad. It's not a bad product. It's just different enough for me to not know where things are. I don't like it. So that was a very challenging device for me to play with. And I don't think I ever did get through. No, I didn't. I never did get through a proper review of that phone. It might be fun to revisit maybe over New Year's when I don't have anything else to do, just to say, hey, this thing existed. That was fun. So that's the balance that we have to walk, though, is I don't want to go way off the deep end in trying to make promises that I can't really cash in on, saying like, oh, well, if you switch from a Samsung to a BlackBerry, the BlackBerry Priv, it's just you're going to be fine because they're both Android. That's not true. That's really not completely true. A lot of the basics, you're absolutely right. A lot of the basics are going to be similar, but there will be enough different things in that experience that I think some consumers will be frustrated by that experience. And that's what I think we could be preparing people better for. If you switch from an Android to a Windows phone, that's a pretty steep learning curve. The basics, most people can kind of stumble their way around, but getting into even just some of the more advanced things, and like how you can customize your start screen, or how you search for apps in the app slider drawer on Windows Phone as opposed to the app drawer that pages horizontally on most Android phones. Or like I mentioned before, switching from an LG to an HTC. Properly explaining what some of those challenges will be, I think, is where I need to kind of take some of this discussion into next year, is just so that we can have that kind of grown-up discussion where we can talk really in-depth and nuanced about the technology, but then also make sure that we're not leaving people behind in what that experience actually represented or what that experience actually felt like. So thank you, no one but myself. And that does lead me into some teases. I hope that it's that you guys check out that conversation with Trisha Hirschberger, because I had a blast putting that together. And we're two pals, we're two friends, and we're just sort of sitting down casually drinking little mugs of whatever was in our mugs, and we're talking about Samsung, talking about technology, and what we hope to see. And then she was kind enough to have me on her channel, talking about gaming headsets and headphones. So my background as an audio engineer, recording engineer, and voiceover director, she wanted to talk about gaming headsets. So we did a little brief showdown between a pair of Creative headphones and the Kingston Cloud 2, the HyperX Cloud 2s. Just did a little showdown between those two gaming headsets. And it was a lot of fun just sort of chatting to her about that kind of stuff too, because I'm actually not as up to date on gaming gear. I'm a recording kid. I understand monitors. I understand, in-ear monitors and high-end recording solutions. And so sometimes someone will throw me like $100 pair of headphones. I'm not entirely sure what to do with them. So she was great to have on. She was kind enough to have me on. We could talk about some of the nuance, some of the recording aspects, the microphone aspects, the differences in having a boom microphone that's in front of your face versus microphones that are just built into the ear cups. I mean, I think we had a lot of fun talking about that. And that video just went live on her channel. I'll try and remember to leave a link down below this podcast so you guys can check it out. And so, folks, I know this got stupid interrupted, and for those of you watching right now, I hope you'll go back and you'll check out some of the stuff at the beginning of this video, because the live stream got interrupted. But we should probably wrap this all up. And so definitely check out the Trisha interview that I've got on this channel, and my appearance on her channel. I hope you guys will check out my book. I wrote a book. It's a book. Like, it's a thing that exists, and you can buy it now. And there's a link down below this broadcast. The book is called Take Better Photos: Smartphone Photography for Noobs. And I know a lot of you guys aren't going to be noobs, but the book is really designed to talk about technique and experience, and where you can draw inspiration, how you can compose better photos, some tips and tricks for better understanding light, because light is really photography. The better the light, the better your photo will be, and different things that you can do to make sure that you're getting the most out of your smartphone camera. I love, as tech geeks, we get really keyed up about, do we have the best? I need the best. We want the best. Like we're going to be the next Ansel Adams, or Robert Knight, his amazing concert photography. And then you get the photo, you get these new cameras, and then people kind of just take the same photos they've always been taking, just really standard snapshot style photos. But for those of you who want to take that content up a notch, even if it's just like you want to take better photos of family and friends, or if you want to improve other content like blogging, that's really what I'm focusing the book on. So it's not about Android photography, it's not about iPhone photography, it's not about Windows Phone or BlackBerry photography. It's just about photography. And so hopefully that will raise the bar on some of that discussion and give you some places to start looking to where you can improve your education and improve your skill set, so that you can draw some really cool stuff out of this, because the cameras on the backs of these phones are getting really good. They're really good content creation devices. So you can catch that in Amazon. Take Better Photos: Smartphone Photography for Noobs. And there is a link down below this video. You can click directly on it, go straight there, and pick it up. It's an ebook right now. I am trying to figure out how I can bring it into the world as a hardback, or maybe even a paperback. And then next year, it'll make the transition to Google Play Books too. So it will eventually end up in Google Play Books. And then for people subscribed to this podcast, or watching this live feed on YouTube, there are a number of places that you can go to find this podcast. You can subscribe via iTunes or the Google Play podcast catcher, if that's live yet, Stitcher, Player FM. And then I've got to, of course, throw a shout out to archive.org. Archive is the backbone for the audio version of this podcast. They're an amazing service that I hope people go and check out, because they're basically trying to back up the internet. So for all the content that we like to consume, that we like to experience, it can disappear pretty easily. And so they're trying to capture content and store and save content, because our digital lives can evaporate pretty easily. So I would highly recommend checking them out. And just like we mentioned at the top, for other charitable donations, I've stopped contributing to sources like Wikipedia. I don't really like how Wikipedia manages their community. I've instead started contributing and supporting archive.org, because I really like their mission in backing up the internet. And then I, of course, have to send a shout out to our sponsors, Loot Crate. lootcrate.com. If you pick up a Loot Crate and you use the promo code SGLOOT, SGLOOT at checkout, you can save yourself an additional 10% on an amazing little fun geek and gamer subscription box service. Each month is a big surprise. We're getting ready for the December crate. I think there's still time to buy it if you guys haven't yet. It could make for some fun side gifts for that geek or gamer in your life, fantasy, sci-fi head, someone like that. They could maybe really enjoy a Loot Crate. And then also audibletrial.com/SGG. You can pick yourself up a free audiobook on me. Definitely check it out. You don't have to spend any money. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial, then cancel it. You get to keep that audiobook, and you will be supporting my show at the same time. So just real quick, I want to go through the live chat because we did get a couple last comments before I started bouncing out of this. Let me get this back to here. And so, unfortunately, Mike Dreef had to leave, and I didn't get a chance to say goodbye because his name is not Mike Beef. And then my name writes, oh, okay, I can see what he's saying. So on the Trisha conversation that I had, because those mics are so directional, it does sound like I'm panning Trisha into your left ear and me into my right ear. But that's kind of how radio mics work. I probably could have spent a little more time trying to balance them or repan them. But people were trying to say like I did that on purpose. And that's really just the stereo environment that those mics create. But my name writes, it just sounds weird, all caps. LOL, I'm not hating on stereo. So I was making fun of people in the comments, like maybe I should just record everything in mono audio because you guys are getting really pissy about stereo. So my name had to send out a comment about that, which is great. And then he also writes, will you be uploading the whole live stream? If so, I will watch it. I'm hoping that as soon as this video is done processing on YouTube, you'll be able to go back and watch from the beginning. So that should be just fine. So, folks, as always, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more rambling, broken podcasts like these. Always nice when Google throws me another curveball that I've got to figure out in real time while I'm recording the show. That's always great. But again, I want to reiterate that message where this community has become something very important and very dear and precious to me in the conversations that we create, and then the cyber friendships that we've developed and that we've made. For not only just myself, but for my family too. My wife has been going through comments on this YouTube channel and also seeing the conversation about things like pets. You know, when we lost Biggs, that was helpful for her. You know, that helped her. She saw that YouTube could be more than just a bunch of people saying mean things to each other on the internet. And I think that for her really kind of set the stage for what it is that I'm trying to do here. And she understood. So I'm producing the show because of those comments. I'm producing the show because of that conversation. And I can't thank you. Not only when you support this channel, like when you hit the fan funding and things like that. YouTube just did something weird. I don't know what's going on anymore. But not only when you support the channel through financial things, but when you share the channel and you bring new people to the channel, that really helps improve the conversation. And you guys have done an amazing job of not bringing douchebags to the table. You know, when people come and they leave crappy comments, you guys are the ones out there policing it like it's your forum. And that makes me so excited to be a part of that, to watch that happen. So thank you so much. That's why I'm doing all of this. That's why I'm continuing to produce on YouTube, because you guys are amazing and I can't thank you enough. So on that note, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, share this content, share these videos, bring more people to the table, hit that thumbs up button, and I will catch you all on next week's show.